Whether you have already chosen a new career path or are maybe just thinking about making a career change, here are some key things that you want to consider. When you're first deciding to change careers and attempting to develop a career change plan, it can feel really overwhelming because you might not know where to begin. We want to know what's next, but that information isn't necessarily immediately available to us. So we're forced to deal with a degree of uncertainty. And dealing with uncertainty can sometimes be pretty challenging, and it can cause some negative emotions like fear, anxiety, self-doubt, things like that. But even though making a meaningful and successful career change, while it does take some hard work and you might experience some of those negative emotions, it can be much easier for you if you're starting the process by developing a sound plan, which is what we're going to talk about in pretty great detail over the next few slides. And then, once you have your plan in place to help deal with the difficulties of making a career change and those potential negative emotions, the biggest thing to remind yourself is to just trust the plan and take things one step at a time. You don't want to try to do everything all at once, because then sometimes that, uncertainty or self-doubt can kind of creep up on you. And just to give sort of a personal example, I started my career as a middle school social studies teacher. Did that for about 5 years before deciding that I wanted a change. And, I dealt with some of that self-doubt and that anxiety because, I didn't know what options were potentially available to me. I didn't know if employers would value my skills at all, but I took the time to kind of refocus and create a plan to take things sort of logically, just moving one step at a time. And that was a good step in really trying to improve my motivation and keep my progress going in the right direction rather than letting that uncertainty or self-doubt creep up. So really just want to emphasize the importance of establishing that career change plan if you are intending to change careers, because you want to keep your brain from kind of snowballing or letting those negative thoughts race out of control. Because if you don't have that plan in place and you do struggle a bit initially with your career change, well, then sometimes you might feel like you need to revert back to what you were doing previously just because that feels safe, even though it's not a good fit for you in the long run. So developing that plan can help you avoid just kind of, diving in without any intention, because you want to be intentional. You want to be intentional with your time and give yourself a chance to, gather information, prepare your strategies, and make informed decisions. And then as you're going along, if you are experiencing some difficulties, remember to have some compassion for yourself and give yourself some grace. Yes, it could be a challenging journey, but that doesn't mean you can't be successful. So just remember to not, be too hard on yourself if you experience any type of setback or, you're experiencing some difficulties, because, with a strong plan in place, you can break through those challenges. Okay, so in terms of establishing a plan, we at FlexJobs developed this four-step system for choosing a new career, because this can help you determine what your plan is. And we were often, hearing from job seekers, I've been doing X for most of my career. What should I do now? And that's not really an easy question for anyone but you to answer. You are the only person that can really determine what that right choice for you might be. And, keep in mind too that there isn't necessarily just one right choice out there. You could be considering, 2, 3, 4 possibilities at the same time, or, something that might feel like the right choice. You end up changing careers, doing that for a time, and then deciding you want another change down the road. That is okay. The world of work has shifted to now allow more flexibility with your career trajectory. So, anytime that you're thinking about making a change, whether now or in the future, following, this type of a system, this 4-step system, really helps you develop that strong plan, gain a better sense of direction, and it really helps things go easier for you as you're trying to make a career transition. And we'll dig into each of these steps within our 4-step system shortly, but I want to give you sort of a quick overview to start. So this system was created to, first and foremost, kind of help you self-reflect. It gives you some questions to consider to help understand understand your motivations, better determine what you like, what you might be trying to avoid, things like that. It also provides you with some assessments and resources that can help you begin to develop a list of viable career options that could be a good fit for you. And then it explains some research methods that you can use to help uncover more about some of those options that you might be considering and kind of narrow down your list of possibilities. And then it walks you through kind of evaluating that list of possibilities so that you can determine, which type of career or careers you really want to target now and help you then develop a plan to pursue them. The whole point here is to kind of reframe your search. You might feel as though you're trying to move away from something, and that's okay. We want to understand what that is we're trying to get away from, but then we want to reframe it and think about, okay, now what am I running towards? It's definitely helpful to acknowledge what you're hoping to avoid, but you primarily want to develop a target or a goal to focus on so that you can approach your career change with a more positive mindset. So if, you are feeling a bit lost and maybe don't know where to start with your career change, I definitely recommend checking out the link to this 4-step system. It is included in the resources section of this webinar. But if you pursue this 4-step system, do make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time to work through it. It can take about 2 hours, which might seem like a lot of time, but these are the types of decisions that shouldn't be made lightly. So, this 4-step system, which is free, can be really helpful for you if you're at all struggling with making a career change. Okay, so the first step in this system really focuses on, getting to know your motivations. And that's an important step when changing your career. It's essentially getting to know your why, the purpose or reasoning behind your decision to change careers. But it can be overwhelming to just ask yourself, why do I want to change careers? Because there could be a lot of different factors influencing that answer. So this step kind of breaks it down into smaller, more manageable, introspective questions that can help you determine your why more easily. You want to change, but what factors are influencing this decision? Self-reflection is important to help understand, those factors and your motivations. For example, do you need a new career or just a new job? Maybe you actually really like what you're doing, but your current company just isn't a good fit for you. Thinking about what do you want work to feel like and how is your current career failing to make you feel that way? Would a new career bring those feelings to you that you're trying to gain? And then also, are you trying to get away from something? What is it you're hoping to avoid going forward? And again, while we do want to reframe our search to focus on what we're running towards, like I mentioned earlier, it is still important to know what you want to avoid. These types of questions that, facilitate that self-reflection, help you get a better understanding of the reasons behind your desire to change careers, as well as, help you begin to form a direction for your career change. And, the questions on the previous slide help, like we talked about, help you better understand sort of the negatives, the things you want to move away from. And then once you know what you're trying to avoid, you want to make sure that you also have a clear understanding of what you do want. This is what allows it to become a more positive action, reframing what you're moving away from to what you're moving towards. So, 2 examples up on the slide here. Maybe you feel like your job is boring and uninteresting. So, okay, I know I want a job that is interesting and exciting. Now I can do some introspection to think about, okay, what is interesting to me? What would be exciting to me? The other example there, maybe you're in a field that's really inflexible. You have a very rigid schedule. You have to go to in-person office every single day. Maybe you want something that is more flexible with the option to work remotely, or you want to work fully remotely. Asking these types of questions, reframing things in these types of ways, this can help you think about the types of roles that will be, fulfilling for you professionally, because it helps you better understand your specific preferences so that you can then target jobs that will meet those preferences. And it's also worth noting that, as you're kind of working through this first step, developing your list of motivations and preferences, that you're also keeping in mind which ones might be, let's say non-negotiable for you, and then which ones you might be willing to sort of forego if an appealing opportunity arose that doesn't match every single one of your preferences. Okay, then step 2 is making a comprehensive list of possibilities, or as you could call it, the throwing spaghetti on the wall step. The goal here is to just build the list at this stage. You don't want to worry about what might be a bad idea versus a good idea. Just think of everything that is interesting to you or that might be a good fit for you so that you can start building that list. The good ideas will stick to the wall and you can explore them more closely later on. The bad ideas will start to fall off the wall and we can just kind of forget about them. But essentially, at this point, you just want to throw whatever comes to you on the wall at this stage, and then you can investigate them and kind of narrow down your list as you continue on with the next steps in this process. And there are a lot of strategies to develop this comprehensive list of possibilities. You can use, different resources like articles or lists that present you with different career options. FlexJobs regularly publishes blog posts about different careers, different fields, industries, and employers that are, hiring for those types of roles. There are also, resources like Career One Stop out there, and another really good resource called ONET Online that post findings about, fast growing careers or in demand roles. And I will pause to add that there are links to, these lists and Career One Stop and ONET in the resources tab of this webinar. So do make sure to check those out. It's also a good idea to, potentially take different assessments. There are quite a few that are linked within the 4-step system that again is provided in that resources tab. And these assessments, they can help you better home in on your skills, your interests, your values, things like that, and then present you with some career options that would align well with your results of those assessments. So also another good strategy just to help develop that list of possibilities. You could also, leverage different AI tools like ChatGPT or Google Bard. These are some of the most common AI tools that people use. And, the way they work is they respond to questions or prompts with helpful information. So you could go to one of these tools and ask something like, I'm a teacher, but I want to leave the education setting and maybe find a remote job. What are some potential options for me? And then, these AI tools will give you some solid responses. And from there, you can review the options it gives you to see that if there are any that you maybe want to research further. And research is really important in making this, career change journey. And we'll talk about that in more depth with step 3. But after after looking at some of these lists or articles, maybe taking different assessments using AI tools, you will probably have some solid options in mind. But a few other things to consider or ask yourself include, what are your transferable skills? Your transferable skills are, your things like your ability to communicate effectively and solve problems and manage your time wisely and work well with others. Think about what skills you possess that you are, really good at. Are there any jobs that you can think of, or maybe that you identified through these lists or these assessments that might relate well to your best skills and abilities? You could also kind of reflect on, what types of jobs do I think would be interesting? Chances are good you've probably sort of imagined yourself in different careers before, careers that sound like they could be appealing to you. Do any of them align with your motivations and preferences from the first step? And then it can also be helpful to ask others what we're good at, friends, family, current or former coworkers. Maybe we have some mentors in our lives or former classmates. We don't always realize the value behind the things that we're really good at, or sometimes we don't even know what we're really good at because we're so used to kind of using those skills, or they come so naturally to us that we don't necessarily realize that others don't possess those skills. So talking it over with someone that you trust and that knows you well can also be really helpful. And again, at this stage in the process, your list might be quite large. In fact, it might be larger than is actually reasonable, but we'll talk about how to further narrow it down on the next few slides. So once you have your full list or your wall covered in spaghetti, to keep using the analogy that we had on the previous slide, the questions on this slide can really help you start to narrow down your list a little bit and begin examining some genuinely viable options. Removing options that obviously aren't a good fit for you, that's going to make it easier to find that target role or roles that you really want to focus on with your career change. So, think about, some of the commonalities between the jobs on your list. Hopefully they reflect what you do want in a job while also helping you avoid what you don't want. If you find that that's not true with some of these jobs, you might need to start removing them from the list. If you're, for example, someone who is very introverted and you find it very draining to interact with people all day, but one or two of the jobs on your list includes a lot of, person-to-person interaction, well, maybe you want to remove them from your list or put them in your B column, not on your A list, at least for now, until you have a chance to look at them more closely. It can also be really helpful to maybe rank the options on your list to further narrow things down. You could still have a lot of options at this point, but if you're able to get your list down to like a top 10 or a top 5, things will start to get easier. And it's not a bad thing to have an expansive job search, but you do eventually want to focus your efforts a bit more narrowly, because trying to narrow down your target roles to just 1 to maybe 3 ideal roles will improve your focus throughout your job search. But don't be concerned if you haven't narrowed it down too much just yet at this point, because we'll discuss on the next slide how you can conduct some research to further identify your top options. But something else to ask yourself is, why do you like each of these jobs that still remain on your list, or maybe that you ranked highly? Sort of like revisiting the first question on this slide. Make sure that they meet your needs, motivations, interests, preference, things like that. You want to make sure that they are going to be fulfilling for you, so that you aren't, finding yourself really quickly back in the same spot that you're in where you're wanting to change careers. Hopefully you can change careers and kind of stick with the next thing for at least a reasonable amount of time before making that next potential change. So this step 3, is arguably the most important, because now you'll be able to take a deep dive into the different roles you've identified and start to prioritize and find out more about each role, which will again help you further narrow down your list of possibilities. So before you commit to a specific change, you want to be fully informed. You want to know what you're getting yourself into so that you're avoiding any potentially uncomfortable surprises, we'll say. So research can be really helpful in determining, qualifications that you are potentially lacking for these fields or these roles, different expectations or responsibilities for these types of roles, maybe common skills, technologies, certifications, things like that are expected for people in these roles, so that you know what you might need to build on or expand. You don't necessarily want to dive right into self-study or take great lengths to learn these things just yet, but it can help you be prepared for what comes next. This slide and the next slide have some solid research methods that you can consider. For example, YouTube, you could search day in the life of an accountant, or what's it like to be a project manager, and you'll probably find some pretty interesting videos that can give you some inside perspectives. Again, different AI tools like GPT or Google Bard, you can ask things like, what are the top skills needed to be a software developer? Or what qualifications do you need to be a customer success manager? Career One Stop and ONET, which we mentioned before. These tools are based on Bureau of Labor statistics, and they contain, a vast majority of jobs out there. You're not going to find every job title, but they contain a lot of jobs, and can, provide a lot of really helpful information to aid you in understanding the intricacies of different roles, including, I'll add, these tools will list out, common education levels, certification requirements. Oftentimes you'll see sort of median salaries listed for people in these roles. So a lot of good research information or a lot of good information that you can get through researching with these types of tools. And then also looking at active job listings can be really helpful. It helps you understand better the expectations for different jobs and what employers are specifically looking for the candidates that they would hire for these types of roles. It is important, though, to keep in mind when you're looking at active job listings that you don't need to match 100% of the things that are listed in that job posting. You almost want to think of the job description as like the employer's ideal wish list. You typically want to aim for jobs where you can match about 60 to 70% of the qualifications. 60% is probably, your baseline there. But again, you don't need to match 100% of the things that are listed in there. But you do also want to keep in mind that, if you see a role that has a separation between preferred qualifications and required qualifications, if you're missing a lot of the required qualifications, then you might, want to think about how you could pursue some of those qualifications or maybe pass on that role. But if you're, missing some of the preferred qualifications, that's not, doesn't tend to be a deal breaker, and you can still be a solid candidate for that role. LinkedIn can also be a great tool to conduct research. A lot of us are aware that job descriptions don't necessarily paint a incredibly clear picture of what exactly you might be doing in that job. So by looking at the ways that, different employees describe their roles and their work, you can gain some greater insight into the actual, day-to-day aspects of, different types of roles. You can also try to conduct informational interviews, which are another great way to gain some inside information. Speaking with someone, getting that information directly from the source, finding people that, maybe you already know, or is a connection of someone that you already know, but they're doing something that you would potentially want to be doing. You could also, just kind of search for people in those types of roles on LinkedIn, or you could look at, maybe the alumni group from your alma mater on LinkedIn to see if you can find people that, again, are doing what you might like to be doing. And informational interviews, these can be conducted in person, over the phone, through video conferencing, or even through, email or LinkedIn messaging. And when you're reaching out to someone to ask about an informational interview, it is a good idea to try to, respect that other person's preference in terms of communication. But then, ask them 3 to 5 questions about what the role is like, what they enjoy or don't enjoy, maybe what surprised them about the role, or things to be aware of. Even just asking them about, their career trajectory and how they launched their career in this field. All of that information can be really valuable for you. And there is a guide included in the resources tab of this webinar on conducting informational interviews. So if you're thinking about taking this approach for researching, I do recommend checking out that guide. Okay, so on to step 4. Hopefully at this point, as you've worked your way through the steps, you have generated your list of ideas, you've started narrowing it down, and now you want to kind of finish off that narrowing down process so you have just a few options that you can target. And these questions focus on, things like your qualifications and fit for certain careers, as well as, whether or not they meet your needs and preferences. So, ask yourself these types of questions, and the answer to these questions will help you decide which job or jobs make the most sense for you to pursue. And if you have most of the key qualifications for a job that is one of your targets, it might be time already to start searching and applying for jobs. Sometimes it's easy to make a career transition or a career change because you're applying for something or targeting a role that is kind of adjacent or very close to the type of role you've already been doing. And just remember, most employers are seeking candidates with 60 to 70% of the main qualifications. And then, for anything that you're missing, you can demonstrate your capability and eagerness to learn. If you don't, though, already have 60 to 70% of the key qualifications for your target role or roles, evaluate which qualifications you still need and then start to develop a plan on how you might obtain them. Maybe you can find some short-term experiences like volunteering or internships or, returnships. Like if you've been out of work for a while, some companies offer returnships to get people back into the workforce. You could also look at, temporary freelance or contract roles to try to gain some experience. Or you could take some classes or online courses to maybe obtain a certification. You don't necessarily need a certification for all different types of roles, but kind of pay attention to job postings and see, is there a specific certification or qualification that is being mentioned time and time again in my target role that, might be might be worth pursuing. Same kind of thing. Like, is it worth going back to school? Perhaps a lot of people are scared to change careers because they think it automatically will require that they get a new degree. But that's usually not the case if you already, have a degree and can, emphasize the transferable skills that you have. But, maybe you're trying to make a really major shift where you do need some type of education or schooling. That's not to dissuade you from it. While education and schooling can take time and money, if it's a career that you are confident you're really passionate about and you might need a new degree or a new certification or something like that, that's perfectly fine, and you want to pursue that if it's going to help you launch your career. But either way, you want to be informed about whether or not that's necessary, because a lot of times, like I said, it might not be necessary. You could just emphasize transferable skills, find some ways to pick up some new skills and gain some experience there. And then learning new technology and new software programs is also, a really good idea for a lot of roles, because that's usually where most people are lacking. A lot of us have more of the basic software programs that we know how to use, like Microsoft Office, Zoom, things like that. But there are also some that are a bit more complex in nature, like Microsoft Excel. There's a lot that you can do with Excel, if you're looking at an analytical field, or, QuickBooks, if you're trying to get into accounting or bookkeeping, or maybe, learning different coding or programming languages. A lot of these things you can learn through, free or fairly cost-effective courses, or sometimes even teach them to yourself. So, keep in mind just what are some of the things that I'm missing? How can I build up those qualifications to make myself, a competitive candidate? Okay, so now a big question for a lot of folks is, whether or not your new career path of choice can be done remotely, because remote and hybrid, or at least, flexible options are often the goal for a lot of job seekers. So when you are using, FlexJobs or really any other job search board, it's helpful to see what type of advanced search options are available, because, applying different filters to your search can help you find results that are going to be more aligned with your interests and preferences. And when searching, you can certainly start by just trying to search by specific job title to see if there are any remote listings that are advertised. But some companies are getting a bit sort of creative with their job titles. For example, sometimes people who are in human resources are now called like happiness experts, or, customer service. Sometimes they're called like success champions, or IT related jobs. You might see like technical guru, things like that. So, you want to keep in mind that you're not always going to be able to search simply by job title, or simply searching by job title might not always yield comprehensive results. So sometimes you want to get a bit creative in your search as well. So you could search by things like different skills or functions, like soft or transferable skills, like maybe training, or project management, or problem solving. You could search by personal attributes like team management or leadership, or you could even search by hard skills, like we mentioned Microsoft Excel and QuickBooks before. So expanding your search beyond titles can help you also uncover roles that you might have missed otherwise. So that's always a smart option to pursue. So the lists here you see on this slide show the current top remote fields, as well as the fastest growing categories that are offering remote and hybrid options based on current FlexJobs posting data. And don't worry, if you don't see fields that you're interested in, these are just, the top 10 out of dozens of industries and hundreds of job titles. So just because you don't see it listed, that doesn't mean there are not remote options in your career of choice or your field of choice. And also keep in mind that the hiring market shifts and changes pretty rapidly. So there are likely to be some changes to these lists in the future. The point of sharing this information is to simply, spark some potential ideas for fields or career types that could be a good fit for you, but you may not have considered before. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close out our presentation here, but let's finish off by, kind of recapping and talking about some action steps that you can take going forward to help you with your career change before we then move into our Q&A. So the first one there, get to know your motivations. What is it you're looking for? What are you trying to avoid? What are your preferences there? Then you want to go into making that list of possibilities. And remember, it can be a pretty large list at first, but then you want to start narrowing things down. And that third action step there, that's really going to help you narrow things down, researching those possibilities to find the most viable options and making sure that you're using, a multitude of research methods. And then, that fourth action step, then you're going to finalize your list after narrowing it down to your top options. You'll start searching for and applying to jobs, or develop a plan to increase your qualifications in that field if you aren't quite meeting that 60 to 70% baseline just yet. All right, so we are going to go ahead now and move into our Q&A portion of the webinar. As a reminder, a copy of the recording as well as the resources discussed will be emailed to you within the next week. Do be sure to check your spam folder just in case it gets filtered there. For even more tips and resources, I do recommend going to the FlexJobs blog. You'll see the URL there on the screen. It includes a vast amount of free articles, guides, webinars, and videos for members and non-members alike. So let's go ahead and move to the Q&A portion of the webinar and open it up to your questions.
Hey everyone, it's Tony here. All right, let's see what questions we have. The first one, it's a lot to do, overwhelming to do on your own. What is your opinion of working with a career coach or job search community as a way to navigate career change? I think that it's definitely important to have people in your corner as you are going through this. And whatever that looks like is going to be different for everybody. So it might be your family, it might be your partner, it might be a job search community that you find on LinkedIn or using groups like Meetup and things like that. I think that can absolutely be helpful. And of course, there are career coaches out there who can sort of help you with the discovery process. I think one of the things that is important to know is that you don't want to, and there shouldn't be a career coach or anybody out there that's going to tell you exactly what you should be doing. That's the uncomfortable part, unfortunately, for ourselves when we're going through a career change, to sort of discover what we want to do and where we should end up next. And sometimes having an accountability partner like a career coach or anybody else in your circle can be really helpful to keep you on track in the process. Do I need to delete all of the jobs on my LinkedIn since the career change would not be related to the work I've done for the last 10 years? No, you don't need to do that in your work experience section. So I'm going to show you, let's see if I can set this up really quickly here. All right, I've got my profile set up here. You want to concentrate on this area, which is your headline. So you would want to gear that towards kind of the future position that you are looking for, making sure that there are keywords there. You don't want it to default to your current position, which is what it defaults to. And you also want to, this looks different because you have different analytics on your own LinkedIn page. But here in your About section, you also can frame your About section towards the job that you are looking for, and in your Experience section. So this is going to be the same as the experience that you have on your resume for the most part, because if you're sending a resume, that experience is not going to change. But what you can do is you can format it, and you should be applying to jobs with your resume that's tailored towards the jobs that you are looking for. So some of your bullets might shift or change based on the job that you are looking for. And for each position that you've had, you can highlight some key skills. And if there are any transferable between the work that you did previously and the work that you want to do, you can go ahead and add that. And then also the skills section, you have the ability to show 50 skills on your LinkedIn profile. And that is something that you would want to do, and make sure that you have skills from your current position and the position you're trying to, so that you can start getting some of those keywords and algorithms there. So hopefully that little brief demonstration was helpful. All right. What about being overqualified for positions that you are more interested in due to having a bachelor's degree? Is it better to remove this information from your resume when applying? This is a great question. If the job that you are looking for doesn't require a degree, certainly you could take that degree off of your resume, and you wouldn't need to have it on there, because the tracking system, applicant tracking system, wouldn't be searching and sourcing for that type of information, right? One of the things that you want to do on your information, the resume, and in your cover letter, is you're really not going to focus on your extensive experience, your 20 years of experience, your, VP job titles, or whatever those job titles were. Instead, you're really going to highlight those skills that you have that are most closely related to the job that you are applying for. And in your cover letter, you might explain something like, I'm really excited about this opportunity in customer service because I really enjoy working one-on-one with clients and helping them to achieve their goals. So you're kind of setting the stage for them, that they know and understand, that you know and understand what the position entails, and that you want to do it. Re-entering the workforce and job requirements list recent experience in this area. How to step around this or iterate the experience is there. So this is a great question. And also just keep in mind, you don't have to meet 100% of the requirements in a job posting to be a competitive applicant. And this is obviously true for people who are career changing, because oftentimes you won't be able to do that. And so when I applied for the job at FlexJobs as a career coach, I did not have career coaching experience. I had other coaching experience. And so, what I did was really relate the skills that they were looking for to my experience that I had. So what you are trying to do and iterate on your cover letter and in your resume is highlighting and pinpointing the specific things that you do that are most closely related to this specific role. How to make those reasons positive. I'm not sure and how to make those reasons positive when presenting some of them to potential employers. Carol, that's from you. I'm not sure what that's regarding. So maybe we can get to that. If you have a little bit more information, you can give me. Let's see. It seems as though all jobs require more than 1 year of experience, usually 2 years in every job title industry, even entry level ones. Do you have any recommendations for getting around this? So I think tailoring your application, tailoring your resume can really help. Also, if you have any other volunteer experience, if you have more years of experience in other areas, those are some things that you can highlight as well. You might be able to, depending on what your situation is. I will just say this. I'm not saying that this is your situation, but right now, there will be, in the coming weeks, a lot of seasonal hiring going on. So if you're looking to transition somewhere where you don't have a lot of experience, that might be a good connection to any seasonal type work that you might be able to find. That might be a quick way to get some experience. And this is not going to be for everybody, for everything that you want to, kind of change into. You might also, as you're looking for jobs and applying for jobs, try to do some volunteer or freelance work if the type of work that you're looking for is, able to be done that way. So those are a few tips. Is there an interest inventory or skills identifier that you recommend as another way to begin? So if you go to the resources section, the 4-step system is really where we recommend that you start. And from there, there are other links and resources like the Career One Stop Skill Matcher. That is something that you might be able to do as well. And ONET also has some resources. So with those three things, you should be in a really good place to get some of that brainstorming and those beginning markers of your career change ironed out. What do you do if you have experience for a job but can't use the job with the experience because of a situation that happened at the job and your reasons for leaving? So I don't um, not knowing how long you were at that job, if it's going to create a big resume gap, you might want to keep it on your resume and think about how you might explain that leaving that role in an interview, which can be a little bit tricky because you always, of course, want to be honest. And even if a lot of people lose their job, are laid off, or get fired at some point in their career, and really, if you look at it as an opportunity and a learning experience and sort of can explain to an employer why that was and what you did with the experience and what you learned from it, that can be something that can be really beneficial as well. The other thing is maybe you need, can look for more of a bridge job or a seasonal job or some type of work that you would be able to do to get some more recent experience in that area as you're moving forward. Let's see. How do you find companies that offer returnships? I don't remember the term used. I was in marketing but went into education. I am now looking to get back into corporate, but marketing has changed quite a bit since I left. More data analytics, digital marketing, etc. I am open to other types of positions as well. Yeah, so we have a returnship webinar that we've done. So you can listen to that. Should be on past events. You also could Google returnship and marketing, or use ChatGPT to help you with that, because those would be that would be a good way to identify some companies that have specific returnship opportunities in marketing, and then you could go from there with your research, because there are a lot of companies out there that do offer returnships. Let's see. What is the best course of action if looking to change careers but would prefer your current employer not be aware yet? Is it best to avoid using LinkedIn, for instance? There are settings you can add or put in place in action on LinkedIn where when you make changes to your profile, it's not made public in terms of like an announcement or an alert, or an email is not sent to those in your network that you've made an update in your profile. I think your updating your skills section on your LinkedIn profile is probably pretty benign in terms of, that getting a lot of notice. That is really an algorithm type thing for people that are looking to hire people. You can adjust your headline. You can keep it, sort of teetering between the two areas if you want. But it's definitely a personal decision. And also, I know that there are specific industries and companies that are more regulatory in terms of what their employees can post or what activity they do on social channels. So that is something you certainly want to abide by as well. Of course, there are some things that you can do behind the scenes in terms of applying for jobs and really discovering what your skills are and that kind of thing. So you can be doing all of that aside from LinkedIn as well. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here today.